So I don't know. We need to come up with some kind of a jokey introduction for this episode. What do you think?
I'm gonna be totally honest with you. I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling the
No?
joke. Now, like I've been thinking about it all week, and it's just
Hmm.
I'm just not feeling it. Do
Well,
it.
let's get. Well, we'll try. Maybe we'll do something else and like have a jokey intro next time.
Yeah, we'll do the new joke next time. I'm sure the listeners will appreciate it because we'll put more thought into it.
Sure, why not? Okay. So, hello everyone. Welcome to Geekery. Uh,
Hello,
I am the Nietzsche.
and I am InkBlitz, and this week we are talking about stress and DM burnout
Yeah,
because it happens to pretty much everyone. And
it
this
really
is
does.
2020, the year of stress and stupidity, and oh my gosh, just shoot me with a Nerf gun now.
Yeah, yeah, sort of world burnout, but yeah.
But
Yeah, but I mean, every DM in the world goes through this, and sometimes sooner, sometimes later. Some DMs live in burnout and spend most of their time complaining about the fact that they never actually run. And some DMs, some DMs go for a long time and then they just hit a wall and
and they're just
get
done.
stuck.
Now, I've hit
Yep.
that point. But it just happens, and whether or not it's just because of the world is being terrible or because your life is hard, because life in general is hard, or it's just you've been DMing for so long and no one else will do it.
Mm.
It happens, but why does it happen? So, one of the things I usually run into is once I go full force into an idea, and I'm only thinking about that idea, and then suddenly I've gone over that chapter or that plot point that I was looking at, and then I'm just suddenly at a wall. I'm like, wait, where'd the rest of the ideas go?
Mm.
And I'm just out of ideas, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm grasping for something that comes next.
Yeah, or if you've been playing a long time, you can literally just feel like you've done it all. I did the ice adventure, I did the volcano adventure, I did the airship adventure, I did the dungeon, I did the space game, I did, and
You've
I,
been doing this for a lot longer than I have, so you've definitely run into that.
yeah, and so sometimes DM burnout is just what's untapped, what's new under the sun.
Yeah, and this is more like how the stress and how the burnout starts to show itself.
Yeah.
Um, and another thing is conflict between your players and the DM. Like you start arguing more, or you start having uh, post session conversations that go on and on
Yeah.
and on.
Or
And
or you get stuck on some bit of minutia, if you're like in a mood, in a funk, and you start arguing about rules or arguing about character build or something, and it can just spiral out of control, and you know, you're barking at each other about stuff that has nothing to do with what you're actually talking about.
and you don't know why. You come back
Yeah.
a few hours later, it's like, what the heck was I arguing about? And
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
that's part of DM burnout, and it's also part of DM stress or player stress, because players can feel the same thing as well when you've been
Yeah,
going for a
absolutely.
long time. And people talk about DMing is really hard. Well, being a player is also hard. Not
It
as
can be.
hard. Not as hard.
Yeah.
But that stress and that burnout just in gaming in general can show up.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a hardcore player, most casual players, they show up for the game and they're done at the end of the game. But I mean, if
Yeah.
you're if you're really into it, like I'm really into it. I imagine you're really into it.
Yep.
Plots gets really into it.
Plots. Yep.
Yeah. So if you spend a lot of time outside the game thinking about your character and what you want to do inside the game, you can burn out as a player too,
Easily.
just doing the same thing. Um, so some of these sources, you mentioned, the real world can be stressful.
Yep.
You can also just have like really high expectations. This is something I'm prone to. I want the game to be awesome. I want to have this deep, rich, fulfilling role-playing experience.
I totally agree
You
with
know,
you. Like you.
and yeah, if everybody else is just there to you know drink soda and kill orcs, that's going to lead to a conflict, and it can lead to the DM burnout of the game you want to present or the game you want to create with the other players is not in alignment with what the other players want.
And that's not fun for the DM. Like if your players are not picking up what you're putting down
Hmm.
repeatedly,
Yeah.
that will easily turn into burnout because, well, why the heck am I doing this? My players are not getting this. They're not getting what I'm putting down. It's like, well, I'm done. So
Yeah.
your brain will just go, you know what? Screw it.
Yeah.
We're just not going to do that anymore.
I was just going to say sometimes the DM and player conflict is a real conflict too, and that can create the burnout rather than
Yes.
be a symptom of it. You
Yes,
know,
it can be a symptom or it can be a cause, especially if you've been dealing with a troublesome player for a really long time and you don't
mm,
realize it.
yeah. Yeah, I mean I've been involved in games where, there was a player who when they finally left the group, everybody else just sort of went,
And yeah, I've been
you
there
know,
too. Like it's like I in one of my long actually it's no longer my longest running games because now our game is the longest one. When
mm,
someone stopped coming, it's like, well, we feel like we can actually play more, or we feel like we have
yeah,
more
you're
to.
not like managing that
You're not
player
imagining that
anymore.
person. You're not,
Yeah.
going around them and trying to avoid their sticking points.
Yeah.
Uh,
And another source of stress is stress, and it's hard to believe that this is actually a thing, but you can actually game too much.
it's a little
Uh,
weird, but it
yeah.
does happen.
Um, we've been creating characters and alternate characters for Plotline's game, and Lee sent an email about, well, the obvious solution is to game twice a week. And I just, I know he meant it as a joke, but just the idea was just like, oh God, no.
Not me. Some people
you know,
love to game as much as possible,
yeah,
but other people just have that limit. And it's
yeah.
like you just can't do any more this week. I'm so
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, gaming, whether as a player or a DM, again, if you're a hardcore, if you're really into it, it takes stuff out of you. You're literally creating worlds, and it takes energy.
you're creating
And
people, you're creating worlds. The DM is creating everything.
and again, you and I, we both have the ADHD angle.
That is definitely a big angle, especially for me. My attention when it comes to DMing and being able to play for long periods of time
Mhm.
is not good.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, and in
I,
ADHD, you have to one of the things that happens is you need to force yourself to pay attention to what you're doing, right? And like bring yourself back to it.
I
And
can
that is an added layer
uh,
of effort.
I can probably prepare myself to stay mentally active and mentally focused on a game for about 2 hours. And after I hit that 2 hour mark, especially with
Mm,
DMing, it's like my brain just starts going, well, I'm going this way. Yeah, let's do something else. My brain's
yeah.
looking for different threads on where to go. And if I'm not, I have to force it to stay focused on the game sometimes,
Yeah.
which I hate because I like the game. I like that
Hmm.
we're gaming. I like the
Yeah.
people we're hanging out with, but oh my gosh, my brain is thinking about, well, what was that game that I was playing earlier? Or that VR headset looks like fun.
Yeah.
It's just
And we work around that in our game by making sure that we schedule a break in the middle
yes.
of every session. There's at least one, we call it the bio break, but usually it's not necessarily a bio break. It's just, sometime we start around 7, sometime around 8:30 to 9, we're like, okay, it's break time, and we go off for 15 minutes and just do something else.
We just
Uh,
refresh our
yeah.
brains,
Yeah.
and it's not just going to the bathroom. It is getting a drink or just sitting in a corner and
Yeah.
letting your brain come back
Yeah.
together. And also with DMs, having a lot of prep time or being able to prepare yourself more definitely does help with that ADHD angle because once your brain starts wandering away, you have the stuff prepared that it doesn't look like your brain is wandering,
Mm.
even though it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other, of course, the problem with that is like wanting to over prepare and everything beforehand. Like, I'm going to game in 2 weeks. I'm going to do this, and 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 then at the table,
We don't do any
you
of
know,
that.
you don't do any of it. Yeah. Um, and something that I run into all the time is, in MMO land they call it altitis, of like starting a new character
Yep.
for every build, etc. And as a DM, you can get what I call the alt campaignitis. You know, so like I ran Storm King's Thunder through to conclusion, and then I was like, I want to go do something else for a while and then come back to it. And then I'm in the middle of running this other thing, and I'm like, I'd kind of like to go do this, and I'd kind of like to go do that,
And also go back to Storm King's Thunder.
yeah, I also want to go back to Storm King's Thunder and run my Thor Ragnarok game and do like guest GMing for your game and all these other things. I'm like, yes, but what are we going to do next week? That's where I need to keep my attention.
And I've definitely been feeling that with Everkeep. It's like, well, I really enjoy Everkeep, but I have this other idea that's floating up in my head, and this other one that's really, no, you need to go away. Go away. And it's so much energy towards that, and that really makes it harder to keep from burning out and keep it. It builds up stress. Like the more that you have to push these things aside as a person with ADHD, the more stress you feel, and the more it feels like it's just not coming together.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like you're looking for the fun, and if you're hyper focused on some idea that's not what you're doing right now, it can be very hard to find the fun. So like, I want to finish Tomb of Annihilation, but my brain is very excited about ideas that I had for continuing Storm King's Thunder. But I'm like, yeah, but we're playing Tomb of Annihilation. That
we're playing Tomb of Annihilation. Get on it, brain.
Yeah, my brain is like, but the fun's over there. I'm like, there could be fun here if you just look for
There's
it.
There's lots of fun here.
Yeah.
It's right here. The fun is here. And it's also there.
Yeah.
And something I always run into, especially with ADHD, is RSD, rejection sensitive dysphoria, where if your players don't give that really outward expression of enjoying the game, your brain starts to automatically go into, well, they hate it. They hate this. They hate this. They hate this. And they don't see, the players are thanking me after every session. They're saying they're enjoying it. They are enjoying it. And I can tell by the smiles and stuff, but my brain is like, well, they haven't said this, this, and this, and so it sucks.
Yeah. Or I was looking for this specific reaction and didn't get that.
I didn't get that reaction.
Some other reaction that's probably perfectly good, but it's not the one I was looking for. Therefore, it's a failure, or something like that. Yeah, and some of that is like confidence as a DM. Like I rarely get the my players didn't enjoy it thing anymore, because I've been running since before the dawn of time. But I do get. I don't think the players enjoyed it in the way that I was trying to present it. Right. Or, I come up with the idea, I would like to do this as this cool heist movie thing. And the players just run in and kill everybody. And I'm like, that was wrong.
That was not what I wanted.
Yeah. The players had a great time, but I felt like it failed. Right.
I mean, that boils down to expectations as well. Like we have this high expectations of, this is how I want this to go.
Yeah.
The players just came in and did everything else.
Yeah.
So that really burns away your expectations, and it goes back to just general stress and general DMs. Like, I want this to be perfect.
Yeah. And the RSD also makes like feedback dicey. Like, I mean, you and I have had conversations where, I was like trying to give you feedback, and it came off like a dig or whatever. And I've gotten that too,
It's just my brain. It's just, it doesn't react well sometimes, and sometimes it reacts fine. And it's like that definitely builds up the stress as well, and DM burnout.
Yeah. And then from the player side, the players end up like, well, I feel like I can't give feedback other than yay, awesome.
Even though they can,
taken this way.
They totally can. It's just moods.
Yeah. So I mean, these are all stressors, and stress is what eventually creates the DM burnout. So,
and
but I mean,
and that will kill games.
Yeah. But having established, if every time you start to think about your game, you're just like, I'm not into it, or I'm not in the mood, or whatever.
I'm not
Like,
doing
what
it.
can you do about it? What are things you can? What are ways to manage DM burnout?
Well, you can talk to your group. Like you can talk to your players, because your players, they are just as much the creators of your game as you are. They may not be, they may not know all the plot points. They may not know all of the set pieces that you're trying to set up in the background, but you can tell them what your expectations are, or you
Mm,
can tell them what you want to do, how you want to do it, and be more open, be more communicate. Because one
mm,
of the major sources of stress in general, just, throughout the world, is the lack of communication. And that shows itself also at the player, at the gaming table, because we're, unlike, a good half of wizards in D&D, we are not psychic. We are not able to detect thoughts.
mm.
So we
We
need to
don't
speak to
all
our
have
players.
proficiency in insight.
I don't
Yeah.
look. I don't have a +10 in insight.
Yeah.
Irie will at some point. She has like a maybe 5 point +5 +6 right now. So,
Yep.
but the players don't. You need to communicate with them. You need to say, "This is the kind of game I want to run," and
Mm,
get that feedback. Get the direct feedback from them. This is why in our games we will often pause and send out emails asking, okay, if this is what I'm expecting to do, what are your expectations? What are
mm.
your ideas about this, and this? And you can
Yeah.
take those ideas from your players and spin that into your game.
And the what I was going to say is just the other piece with communication is, if you are feeling burnt out, you can take it to your players and say, I'm running into this issue, I'm running into that issue. What do you think about it, or what are ways we can work around it? Um, you know,
Yeah, what are
or
their
even
advice?
just I need a break. You know, Usually some other player will be like, well, I've been wanting to do X, Y, or Z, so we'll do that for a period of time or something. But brainstorming is another
Yep.
a good way to
Yeah.
get out of burnout.
Just sit down and brainstorm. Just don't even think about what your players are doing. Don't even think about uh, the game as a game. Just sit down and brainstorm.
Yeah,
A lot of
imagine your world and play what if with it. You
Yeah,
know.
just have fun. Make a mind map, which is where you create a central idea and you try and create different ideas that are based off of it. It's
Mhm.
I'm trying to explain this in a very terrible way.
That's okay. I'm sure people who want to know what a mind map is can Google it. But yeah,
It's a mind map. Look it up. But it's a very effective way to help you to
it's
create connections to different things that you want. Like you
yeah,
have
it's a brainstorming tool.
central
More than
idea surrounded by other ideas, and you just build off of that.
Also, another great way of brainstorming is flipping through like the monster manual
Yes.
and just, flip, flip, flip. That's a really cool monster and I really want to use it. How can I fit that in next week?
And not just the monster manual, like go through the DM's guild and dig up all of the monster compendiums
Mm.
that they have there, because they have dozens. DM's guild, drive through
Well, the
RPG,
Cobalt ones are great.
Cobalt
They're
Press.
they're very flavorful.
Yes, they have.
So that's Creature Codex and the Tome of Beasts. The Tome of Beasts 2 has just come out, which I don't have yet, but I hope to rectify that in the not too distant future.
I often run into
Yeah.
the problem where my stress comes from, well, my players already know about this monster. There is
Mm.
no possible way where we're not going to get some metagaming here. So what can I throw at them? And that's when I go to these things that I know my players have never seen before. And I
Yeah.
find these interesting monsters that I can throw into my game, and it'll be really interesting. It'll shock the players, or make them really interested about what this creature is.
Mm.
And that has often been a fun part for me too.
Yeah. The other thing is just sort of relax. You
Yeah,
know, you don't have to run the perfect
reduce your
game.
expectations.
People talk about the Matt Mercer effect. Not having watched actually any Critical Role, I know it's awesome, and all that jazz. I don't need to have it recommended to me again.
I
Um,
I came into DMing after, actually no, my second time DMing was after watching season 1 of Critical Role. I'm like, I have so many ideas from Matt Mercer. It's like he's
yeah.
giving me so much to go off. I'm like, yeah, none of this is gonna work. I
Well,
love my players, but they are not that involved.
yeah. Well, that's the thing is you know D&D originated from a bunch of schlubs sitting around a table just goofing around, right? And
Yeah,
it if you expect it to be a professional, Hollywood budget show with professional voice actors and writers, etc., you're going to be disappointed a lot. So just try to lower the bar on what you think of as good gaming. Did everybody have fun?
that's the point.
That's a good game. Did you recreate Shakespeare? No, but
Eh,
that doesn't matter, right?
you don't have to. You just have to have
Yeah.
fun. You have to come out of. I feel like a good way that you know that a session has gone well is if you come out of that session in a better mood than how you came into it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good
Did did
that's
did
a
you
good way.
laugh? Did you smile? Did you just enjoy being with your friends in this fantasy world? You know what? It was a good session.
Yeah.
Who cares if your plot was thrown to the winds or if they killed your important NPC? First of
Yeah, and
all,
if you
you should probably have them have that NPC have an out somehow. But in the other part, who cares? It's a game.
if your NPC has minions, they can take them away and resurrect them.
Yeah.
That's totally a D&D thing. But just my point is if your game is you rehash the plot of Star Wars and just turn it back into a fantasy movie, right? That's fine. As long
That's
as
fun.
everybody had fun, that's
Yeah.
fine. It doesn't have to be brilliant. Remember why you love the game. Remember what you enjoy about the game.
Yeah.
You know,
Why are you
what is
here?
what makes D&D awesome for you? And think about, remembering that will remind you, oh, I do love this thing and I am excited to do it and I want to keep doing it.
Yeah, like I like this game. It just
Yeah.
stresses me out. But why do I like this game? Well, for me, it's to be able to. Well, I didn't realize until later, but one of the big parts for me was to be able to hang out with my friends. But also, uh, I love to create worlds. I love to create characters. I love to explore those characters in that world. And I just love
Mhm.
fantasy.
Yeah.
It's like fantasy is so cool, and there's
Mhm.
so much you can do with a fantasy world. And in D&D,
Yeah. Well, for me, what I love about D&D versus writing, because I am also a writer,
we both are. Yeah.
we both are, is discovery, right?
Yes.
I love discovering the story with everybody instead of just I know what's going to happen, I know what the hero's going to do, blah blah blah. I love the surprise of it. And as a DM, for a long time, I had the reputation of what was called the oh shit opener, where I would drop the characters. I'd do an in media res beginning for every adventure, where like my most famous one was the characters were. It was a Star Wars game. The characters were flying around in their own little freighter, and the opening of the adventure was they were under attack by TIE fighters, and a blast hit the ship and vented it. They were in an atmosphere, so fortunately they didn't have explosive decompression into space. But one of the characters, an NPC they all loved, got sucked out.
Oh no.
And so that's the beginning of the adventure. This guy just got sucked out of the spaceship. What do you do? You know,
I like
and
it.
that's how I got this reputation for the oh shit opener. I was just do stuff like that all the time. And for me, the one of the best things was watching the players go, "Oh God, how did you do this? Why did
What
you
did
do this
you
to
do
us?"
this for?
But also just watching them fix it, watching them solve this crazy problem, watching them work together and think about it, all this kind of stuff. For me, that was like the coolest thing was just the group.
Figuring out how to
Uh,
do it.
yeah. So whenever I'm in this sort of funk of you know I'm tired of them just wandering around shooting stormtroopers all the time. What can I do? I think of some crazy problem
There you go.
that they have to solve. So that's how I do it. But sometimes, I mean, even if you love something, sometimes you just need a break from it.
You just need to go do something else.
Yeah. And that can be any number of things. If you do have alt campaignitis, go ahead and run your other idea.
Run that
You know,
campaign. Your
do a
players
couple
will
of sessions.
your players will still want to come back.
Yeah, and
Just do it.
if it's different enough from what you're already doing, it would be good for everybody. Like, so if you're already running a Dungeons campaign, don't just start another Dungeons campaign. If you're running a Dungeons campaign, start a Star Wars campaign or a superheroes campaign. There's role playing games for everything. Start Call of Cthulhu, which is very different from any other game out there, right?
I have done that previously in a different sessions. They have done that, and they found a way to combine both the Call of Cthulhu and the actual D&D session that we were doing, where they are trying to make it look like the bad guy, the main baddie of our session, was causing the characters to go insane, and they were hallucinating this Call of Cthulhu
Neat.
world, and so that was a different way to do it. And then you could still just, once that was over, we had an easy way back into the regular campaign.
Just my point is make it different enough so that you get the benefit of doing something else. There's an old expression: a change is as good as a rest. You want it to be.
It is.
You don't want it to be just more of the same. Otherwise, you won't get any benefit from it.
Exactly.
And sometimes, just play something in a different game system.
Yeah.
D&D has a very specific experience. Leveling up, killing tougher monsters, getting more powerful spells, getting more hit points.
Right.
Then try something like RuneQuest, where it's skill-based. You never really get tougher. You might get better at fighting, but you don't get any tougher. So that makes you approach combat in a more tactical kind of way. You can't just tough it out. You have to, there's a dragon there who's, doing tons of damage. You're going to get roasted even if you're super competent.
Yes.
So you have to figure out how to not get roasted, right? Or try a system that's if you're used to very crunchy map-based system, try a very loose like Fate or Fudge or something where everything is descriptive and you just roll a couple of dice for everything, that kind of thing.
Or you don't have to play games at all. I mean, you don't have to play tabletop games at all. You can play a board game. You can play like whatever we're really burnt out on D&D. We go play Jackbox.
Yeah, you don't know Jack or Fibbage or something like that. Yeah.
And it's great fun. It gets us to cooperate with each other, and you just have fun with each other, and it reminds us why we enjoy being friends with each other and just hanging out.
Yeah. With no pressure. You don't have to prep it. You don't have to be on for it.
No.
You
don't have to win any of the games. You don't have to be funny. You just have to be there and enjoy yourself. And sometimes I can also weed out some of the player DM difficulties, because if you can also find out, if someone has a personality that's not really meshing, it will start to show out in those kind of games too, those party games. So
yeah, I mean, there's a you don't have to be besties with everybody in your gaming group, but you do need to be able to get along with them.
Yes.
Right. And so, a good way of testing that is putting your group into other situations and working it out. And sometimes, sometimes you can just come to the conclusion that you're not right for a group, or this person is not right for a group, or whatever. And knowing that, you can act on it and find something that will be a better fit.
Yeah.
So I think we've pretty much covered everything we were going to talk about with this. DM burnout, I mean, it is a very common problem, but it is something that has, fairly simple solutions. Sometimes it's just a matter of getting over it. Like I said, take a break, maybe a week, maybe a couple of weeks, maybe you let somebody else be the primary DM for a while. And at some point, if you remember, what it is you enjoy, or something reminds you, then you will want to run again, and that's really all there is to it.
Or life will change. Life is always changing. We're always going through different issues. We're always going through different difficulties, and life will get better. and you'll get back into playing. You'll get back into your groove, and you'll enjoy yourself again. You'll get out of that burnout. It'll take time, but
Mm. Yeah, but you'll get there.
you'll get there. So
S-
next time,
Next time.
what are we looking at next time? Respect at the table. Yeah, you want
still
to.
got that one.
It's still there. How do you respect each other at the table? How do you be reasonably cooperative with people who you may not totally get along with, or you may not be best friends with, but
Or just table etiquette.
yeah,
When do you make a skill check? When do you when does everybody get a turn, or how does everybody get a turn? Any kind of sort of interpersonal stuff starts with respect.
yeah.
We also have the topic of your game master credo, which is when you're a GM, like what are your foundational principles?
What do you
for
fall
running?
back on? What is
Yeah.
the things that you tend to do? What do you prefer to do in different situations? Do you have
Yeah.
not really house rules, but how do you handle certain things?
Yeah, and why? Like, what is it you're trying to achieve? What is it you're bringing to the table? What do you want out of your game? And the other, I had an idea for doing, based on our reskinning video, what I was going to call the Geekery workshop, where we take a mechanical issue, like a specific game mechanic thing, and discuss it. And I had the idea of writing up Edward Kenway from the Assassin's Creed Black Flag game, partially because I just played the heck out of that, and partially because it parallels a lot of like what I'm doing with my own character. So I was using it as a way of thinking through some of those ideas.
And
So
pirates
I
are
had
just
the idea.
cool.
Yeah, pirates really are. They are just cool. And it would give me an excuse to capture a lot of footage from Black Flag and intersperse it in the video without having to, just having it be random.
So
So
that seems like a good reason for it.
yeah, so that's another possibility. So please, viewers, go ahead and tell us, which of those you'd like, or if there's something else you'd like us to talk about. We'd be happy to do it.
Leave it in the comments.
Yes, leave it in the comments. As always, we hope you will like us and subscribe to us and ask for notifications and all that jazz.
Subscribe.
Something like that. Yep.
Wherever you put me, they're down there.
Yeah. So because that helps the channel, helps us build a community, helps us create a wider audience. And I always want to plug my Patreon because that's how I earn my living, and I have had some people joining. So thank you for everyone who's supporting me on Patreon.
Please support him.
Yeah, whichever side.
Whichever side he puts me on.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's it for this week, I think. So thank you for coming, everybody.
Thank you. And
Yep.
see you next time.
Yep. Take it easy.